In this session, we are going to look at the genesis of curriculum. When we talk of the genesis, you can imagine you have heard of the word Genesis, which is interpreted as the beginning and the starting point of something. And this time, because we are looking at curriculum, it is the beginning of curriculum. There are several scholars who have developed definitions of curriculum. We cannot enumerate them. But the one we are going to centralize on is the definition developed by Maxim Grimm. Maxim Grimm developed a definition of curriculum which tends to extract and unearth the meaning of curriculum right from its beginning. And there, Maxim Grimm defined the curriculum as what you and me undergoes from the time we are born to the time we die. So what you undergo from the time you're born to the time you die is what explains what your curriculum is. That interprets that everyone in the world has a curriculum that he or she has undergone. So curriculum is not a document written down, and it is life itself, and it is what explains what a person has undergone right from the time the person is born to all through the lifetime of the person and until the person is dead. So all that the person has undergone is a summation of that information, those activities, which explains to us the curriculum of that person. Now, we need to ask ourselves a very critical question. When is a person born? And here in curriculum, we create a distinction between birth and delivery. That is very central. So a person is born when conception happens. At the point of conception, that's when the person is born. And at that point of conception, the male and female gametes are meeting, and when they meet, they form a cell, and this little cell is life itself has now formed. At that point, the cell is moving to the uterus to attach itself there. So you'll see those who want to dig into details, you'll see the phases of the trophoblasts, the fibroblasts, and there we see that the fetus is now formulated and attaching itself, and the fetus is attaching to the mother, and then life is now starting to form. At this time, we see that the curriculum is beginning in the mother's womb, and that is at the time from the time of conception to pregnancy, the child is in the mother's womb, and the life of the child is widely dependent on the life of the mother. So take an example that when the mother is malnourished, apparently the child will also be malnourished, because the child is feeding directly from the mother, and if the mother has some deficiencies in feeding, and caused by feeding, then the child will also have such deficiencies. So the child's physical development will be affected. You remember that here, when the child is inside the mother's womb, the child is growing intellectually, the mind is growing, and also physically the body is also growing. It's the other aspect of social that the child has not so much been exposed to, and the other aspect of the spiritual aspect or the affective aspect that the child has not been exposed to. But these two, the physical development and the mental development, are occurring at this stage. That's why it is important that we advise mothers to feed well, and also to fend for them so that they are fed so well to be nourished. And then also you look at when the mother is stressed, we also see that the child can also be stressed inside the mother's womb, and the mother gets involved in drinking alcohol or taking any form of drugs, the child will also share on the same. And now you realize the child can also get drunk inside the mother's womb, and this can affect the cognitive development of the child. The mind is still very fragile and very delicate, and at this stage the child is developing. And if there is an interruption created by drugs such as alcohol, or even smoking cigarettes, or smoking any form of drug such as marijuana, the child will also these molecules from these chemicals can also be diffused into the bloodstream of the child, and then you end up seeing that the child will be drunk, and the child will have the smoking aspect of it, which if the child after delivery is not well guided, this child can easily become a drunkard and can easily become a smoker, because the body will be having those molecules triggering off the mind and triggering off the heart of the child, trying to demand for those ingredients, for those chemicals which are already in the body. So we will also see here that we advise in the time of this prenatal stage, the stage when the mother is pregnant, we advise that the mothers keep going to the health practitioners and physicians to get checkups, to get scans, to get Medicare, so that when the time comes and the child is to be delivered, the child is in a good position. And you'll find that some children can be inverted and inside the mother's womb, which can affect one of the parts of the body, or the eye is mispositioned inside there and is affected. You end up having runners, you end up having children born with the eye, which is one eye blind, or the ears cannot sense sound, or a part of the body having a deformity or a deformation. So it is very important that we get to the physicians to be able to actually position well the child inside the mother's womb, so that the child is delivered well. Some children actually get inverted, that instead of the head coming out first, it is actually the legs coming out first, which can actually affect them at the time of delivery, and also during pregnancy they can get an impairment. And also we advise that mothers are not exposed to torture, and specifically looking at physical torture, because if the mother is kicked on the stomach where the child's hand is, the hand can end up breaking, and you realize this is a fragile hand and it is very delicate. It is actually cartilage, not yet even bones, so the child can be affected. And maybe the mother can also be walking and getting an accident where the head of the child gets a deformation, or the eye getting a defect or getting affected, and the child is born with, the child is single-eyed instead of being a wholesome in the body. So we actually encourage that at the time of delivery. At the time of delivery, we encourage that the midwives and the health practitioners put precision to ensure that the child receives sufficient oxygen. And of course, according to the research done by scholars, it shows that children get cognitive impairments widely because of insufficient inhalation of oxygen during the time of delivery. So when the child receives insufficient oxygen, the child's cognitive development is affected, and this can be perennial all through the child's life, affecting the learning of the child. We also see that inhalation of oxygen can also affect the learner's ability to conceptualize the subject matter, and that can be a big challenge. Even to prevent transmission of mother to child infections during this time. You know, some children can be born without AIDS, so that they are conceived without AIDS, and then at delivery, that is when the child can possibly get AIDS if precision is not put in place to ensure that the blood of the mother does not mix with the blood of the child, because inside God and prepared the blood saturation system of the mother in such a way that it does not directly mix with the blood saturation system of the child, but the nutrients are transmitted by diffusion from the mother to the child. So it means that a child up to the point of delivery, the child cannot have HIV or AIDS or any infection, except when this separation of membranes of the child and the mother is not taken care of, that the blood of the mother mixes with that of the child at the time of conception, at the time of delivery, that we see that the child gets the infections of the mother, or the infections of the surrounding, or the infections of the midwives or the people who are taking care. So this has got to be taken care of, because we want to see a child who is delivered is healthy and has cognitively been sound and ready to interact with the environment. And then when the child is delivered, and so here we see that the child will be exposed to what we call another stage called the postnatal stage, where the environment, which environment has 7 aspects. It has light, air, water, land, plants, animals, and people. Those will create the environment around which the learner is, the child is going to be, and that will initiate the child to learn these different things from the environment. So the environment will impact more on the learner's life, creating a pattern of thought, a pattern of words, and a pattern of action. So that is continuously as the person grows older and older, gets exposed to different environments, and this creates a pattern of thought, a pattern of words, a pattern of action, and later on the person gets knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, and also skills to be and values to live by, and that creates a summation of curriculum. So we finally we also have another definition that was developed by Kenneth Mwesigwa, and I also complemented that definition. And this definition of curriculum says that a curriculum is a series of information and a series of activities that a person receives from the time the person is born to the time the person dies. So that is a mention of all that information, messages, series of activities the person gets exposed to, will later on create a body of knowledge, a body of skills, a body of values that the person will later on exhibit in all through his life. So everyone has a curriculum to live by, and as curriculum developers, we've got to prepare for what kind of information, what kind of message we would like this person to receive right from the person's time of birth all through the person's lifespan, so that the person becomes useful or productive in the communities, and then the person is also able to be just and orderly in the way he or she handles everything pertaining to life. So thank you for attending to this session, this section of the Genesis of Curriculum. I'm Sebuyongo Wilbur, Nkumba University.